Sunday lunch at my grandmother's house always smelled like roasted garlic, dish soap, and unresolved tension. It was a tradition long before I was born. Every second Sunday of the month, Grandma's house, 1 o'clock. No excuses, no rescheduling, no something came up. Weddings and funerals could disrupt it. Everything else had to work around it. So when my cousin texted me that week, "You're coming Sunday, right? Grandma will be mad if you bail again." I didn't think anything of it. "Yeah," I replied. "Wouldn't miss it." That was a lie. I would have missed it. Gladly. I'd had a migraine 3 days in a row. Work was a mess. My apartment looked like a laundry basket had exploded. The last thing I wanted was to sit at a table with my family while they asked the same questions they always asked. "How's work? Any special someone yet? Are you eating enough? Why do you look so tired?" But you don't say no to Grandma. Not in our family. So I showed up. I brought a store-bought lemon tart because I didn't have the energy to pretend I'd made something. I wore a long-sleeve shirt to cover the fading bruises from walking into my coffee table at 2 a.m., 3 nights in a row. I rehearsed my usual answers on the drive over. Work is busy, but good. Dating is tricky in the city. Yes, I'm eating. No, I'm fine. Just tired. I pulled up to Grandma's house at 12:58 p.m., 12 minutes early. I was almost proud of myself. Her house looked the same as it always had. White siding, navy shutters, the maple tree out front I'd once tried to climb and promptly fallen out of. But there were more cars than usual in the driveway. My brothers, my parents, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, all lined up like soldiers. I felt a small knot tighten in my stomach. I parked on the street, took a breath, and walked up the front path. The door swung open before I could knock. Grandma stood there, apron on, silver hair pinned up, eyes bright. "Emma?" she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like rosemary and laundry detergent. "You're here." "Hi, Grandma," I said, muffled into her shoulder. "Yeah, I brought dessert." "You didn't have to," she said, even though she always insisted we did. "Come in. Everyone's waiting." Everyone's waiting. In hindsight, that should have been the second clue. The first was the number of cars. The third was the way the entire dining room went quiet when I walked in. My mother was at the table, hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had probably gone cold. My father sat at the far end, posture too straight. My younger brother, Noah, leaned back in his chair, staring at the table runner. My aunt and uncle sat side by side, tight-lipped. My cousin Lily picked at a loose thread on her sleeve. No one was serving themselves appetizers. No one was talking over each other. No one was telling Grandma she'd made too much food. They all just looked at me. "Wow," I said, trying to ignore the way my heartbeat picked up. "Did someone die?" It was a joke. A bad one. No one laughed. Grandma put a hand on my back and gently guided me into the room. "Sit down, sweetheart," she said. "We need to talk before we eat." The knot in my stomach turned to stone. There are certain sentences you never want to hear from your family. "We need to talk" is at the top of the list. I sat down in my usual seat, third from Grandma, across from Noah. He didn't meet my eyes. My mother cleared her throat. "Emma?" she said. I hated the way she said my name in that moment, carefully, like it might break. "What's going on?" I asked, forcing a laugh. "Please don't tell me this is some kind of surprise party because it's not my birthday and I didn't bring enough dessert." My father folded his hands on the table. "This isn't a party," he said. My aunt shifted in her seat. Lily's knee bounced under the table. I looked around at all of them. My family, arranged like a jury. That's when it hit me, I would tell my therapist months later. Sunday lunch at Grandma's wasn't Sunday lunch anymore. It was an intervention. And I was the problem they were there to solve. In that moment, though, all I could manage was a weak, "Okay, this is weird. What's happening?" Grandma sat down at the head of the table. Her eyes were kind. Her expression was not. "Emma," she said softly, "we're worried about you." The room blurred a little at the edges. Of all the things I'd expected that day, overcooked carrots, passive-aggressive comments about my job, arguments about politics, this was not one of them. I swallowed hard. "You picked Sunday lunch for this?" I asked. Grandma's gaze didn't waver. "You never cancel Sunday lunch," she said. "We knew you'd come." It was then I realized this had been planned by all of them. Sunday lunch at Grandma's had turned into a family intervention, and I was trapped at the table. Chapter 1. What everyone else saw. If you'd asked me 2 weeks before that Sunday how I was doing, I would have said, fine. Not good. Not great. Just fine. Fine is a convenient word. It covers a lot of ground. You can be barely holding it together and still call it fine. I had a decent job in marketing at a tech company. I had an apartment in the city that, while small, was mine. I paid my bills on time. I had friends, sort of. Acquaintances I could text when I didn't want to eat alone. Yes, I was exhausted all the time. Yes, my moods had started to swing harder than I liked. Yes, I'd been cancelling plans and ignoring texts more often. But doesn't everyone go through phases like that? I thought my life looked reasonably functional from the outside. Turns out, I was wrong. My mother was the first one to notice, apparently. "Emma doesn't answer my calls anymore," she had told Grandma in a different Sunday lunch, one I hadn't attended. She texts back 2 days later with one-word replies. When I ask to visit, she says she's too busy with work. "That's normal," my aunt had said. "She's 30. That's what they do at that age. They go to work, they come home, they avoid their parents." But my mother had shaken her head. "No," she'd said. "This is different. She used to talk to me. Now everything is 'I'm tired' or 'it's not a good time.'" My grandmother had frowned, wiping her hands on her apron. "Has she been coming on Sundays?" she'd asked. "Less," my mother had admitted. "She cancelled in August, said she had a deadline. She came in September but left early. In October, she showed up looking like she hadn't slept in days." "She's always been like that," Noah had chimed in. "She's a zombie." My father had stayed quiet through all of this, of course. It's what he does. But later, washing dishes, he'd said to Grandma in a low voice, "I saw her bank statements the other day. She asked for help with her taxes. There were so many charges to the same food delivery app, Nan. So many. And late fees on her credit card. She used to be careful." "You think she's in trouble?" Grandma had asked. "I think," my father had said slowly, "she's drowning and pretending she's fine." The cousin intel came next. "You know she left my texts on read for 3 weeks?" Lily had said. "I sent her this long message about my breakup, and she replied with, 'Sorry, that sucks. Proud of you.' That's not her. She usually sends paragraphs and memes. Terrible memes. But still." "So she's busy," my aunt had said again, holding on to denial like a life raft. "She posted on Instagram the same day," Lily had pointed out. "She's not too busy for that." Screenshots entered the chat. Not literally, but close enough. I saw on her Instagram story, Noah had added, she posted this photo at like 3 in the morning. The caption was, "Can't sleep, send help," but with a laughing emoji. Maybe she was joking, my uncle had said. She never jokes about sleep, Noah had replied. That's like her favorite thing in the world. Examples began to pile up. The time I'd fallen asleep at the table at Christmas. The time I'd snapped at my mother for asking how my day was. The time I'd burst into tears at the grocery store because they were out of the yogurt I liked. Little things. Individual moments. Each one, alone, could be dismissed. Together, they formed a picture. She didn't come to my graduation party, Noah had finally said, voice small. She said she couldn't get away from work. My friends thought I didn't have a sister. That one, apparently, had been the tipping point for him. Something's wrong with Em, he'd told Grandma that night, and she won't tell me what it is. My grandmother had stirred sugar into her tea, staring into the swirl. We could wait for her to tell us, my mother had said. Maybe she just needs time? That's what we did with your Uncle Paul, Grandma had replied quietly. We waited for him to tell us he was struggling. We said, he's busy, he's young, he'll call when he's ready. He never did. The room had gone quiet. Uncle Paul had died 10 years earlier. Alone. In his apartment. It wasn't something we talked about at Sunday lunch. We're not going to make that mistake twice, Grandma had said, voice steady. If Emma's in trouble, we go to her. We don't wait for her to come to us. Thus, the group chat was born, a very modern tool for a very old family. We need to talk about Emma, Grandma had texted. Even the fact that she knew how to text should have been a sign of how serious she was. What followed was a flurry of logistics, hesitations, and arguments. I don't want her to feel ambushed, my mother had written. So we just keep pretending everything is fine? Lily had replied. She's clearly not. I'm worried about her. Interventions can backfire, my uncle had added. So can doing nothing, Grandma had answered. Sunday lunch, this month. Everyone there. We talk, calmly, kind but honest. No shouting, no ganging up. Just telling her what we see. Will she come? Noah had asked. She always comes, Grandma had said, even when she doesn't want to. They picked their day. They chose their words. They rehearsed their lines in their heads. Meanwhile, I went about my life, blissfully unaware that my whole family was planning to sit me down and ask me why I was falling apart. I was too busy telling myself I was fine. Chapter 2. My version of fine. In my defense, it's not like I woke up one morning and decided, today I will slowly burn myself out until my family has to stage an intervention over roast chicken. It happened in bits. I'd always been the responsible one. Oldest child. Good grades. Got into a decent college. Got a job straight out of school. I'd moved to the city after graduation because that's what you do when you want to prove you're not stuck in your hometown's gravity. At first it was exciting. New bars, new friends, new office, new everything. Then the novelty wore off, and all I had left was the grind. My job at the tech company could have been interesting, in another life. I liked words. I liked stories. Marketing was, in theory, storytelling. In practice, it was a lot of meetings about click-through rates and alignment, and whether the hero image should be a woman laughing at salad or a man in a suit staring at his laptop. I stayed late to prove myself. I said yes to everything. My boss praised me in performance reviews. Emma is so dependable. She always delivers. I put those compliments in my pocket like coins, hoping they'd add up to something that felt like enough. Outside of work, my life shrank. Friends moved away. Some got married. Some had kids. Our group chats got quieter. I started saying no to dinner invitations more often. Sorry, so swamped, I'd write, staring at a screen until my eyes burned. On the nights I did go out, I'd drink more than I planned. It was easier to be witty and relaxed when everything was a little fuzzy at the edges. Then I'd wake up the next day with a pounding head and a to-do list that looked like a threat. My apartment turned into a series of piles. Piles of laundry, piles of mail, piles of dishes I promised myself I'd wash tomorrow. I stopped cooking. There's a certain kind of shame that comes with realizing you've eaten freezer waffles for dinner 3 nights in a row because the idea of chopping vegetables feels insurmountable. Sleep came in two forms: too much or not at all. Some nights I'd collapse into bed at 8 p.m. and wake up 12 hours later feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Other nights I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, brain running through a highlight reel of every mistake I'd ever made. Every time I ignored a text, every time I snapped at my mother, every time I said, "I'm fine," when I wasn't. Work started commenting. "Are you okay?" my boss asked one morning, after a presentation where I'd stumbled over words I'd written. "Fine," I said, smiling too wide. "Just tired." My friends started pulling away. "I never know if you're going to show up," Zoe said once, when I bailed on her birthday drinks an hour before. "It's like you make plans for future Emma, and she always flakes." "Sorry," I replied, staring at my phone long after the screen went dark. Work was insane. My mother started worrying out loud. "You look pale," she said at one Sunday lunch in September. "Are you getting enough iron?" "I'm fine," I said, too quickly. "Your eyes look sad," Grandma murmured, passing me the potatoes. "I'm just tired," I said, which had become my catch-all answer. Tired covered everything: depression, anxiety, burnout. Who could argue with tired? To be clear, there were good moments, sunsets from my apartment window, laughing so hard with Lily over FaceTime that my stomach hurt, finishing a big project at work and getting a rare, genuine, great job from my boss. Those moments kept me going. They also reassured me that whatever this was, it wasn't serious enough to ask for help. People with real problems didn't get promoted. They didn't remember birthdays. They didn't post silly Instagram stories at 2 a.m. I was functioning, unhappy, exhausted, but functioning. That's what I told myself anyway. I didn't see the pattern. I didn't see the missed calls, the flaked plans, the way everyone had started talking about me in worried tones when I left the room. I didn't see my own life clearly enough to realize I was slowly fading out of it. My family did. So while I called it fine, they called it enough. Enough cancelled Sundays. Enough one-word texts. Enough watching me sink while pretending I was swimming. Which is how I ended up at Grandma's house, sitting at her dining table with a lemon tart and a pounding heart, while my entire family looked at me like I was a puzzle they were finally ready to solve. Chapter 3. The Intervention at the Table. "Emma," my mother said again, her voice careful. "We're worried about you." The dining room was too quiet. Usually Sunday lunches were chaotic. Someone was always talking with their mouth full. Someone else was telling a story over someone else's story. The TV in the living room played a game no one was really watching. This silence felt wrong. Heavy. I forced a smile. Why? I asked. Because I brought store-bought dessert. Sorry, Grandma. Next time I'll burn something homemade just for you. Grandma didn't smile. You look tired, she said. There it was. The line. I'm fine, I replied automatically. We don't think you are, Lily said quietly. I looked at her, surprised. My cousin has always been the soft one, the one who cries at commercials and apologizes to furniture when she bumps into it. Seeing her sit up a little straighter, eyes shiny but determined, made my chest tighten. What's this about? I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. My father took a breath, like he was about to jump into cold water. This is an intervention, he said. The word sounded ridiculous at Grandma's table. Interventions were for celebrities on reality shows, sitting in hotel conference rooms while their families read letters about rehab. This is not an intervention, I said, laughing. It came out wrong. Too high. What are you going to do? Send me to pastry rehab? My mother flinched. We're not here to attack you, she said. We're here because we love you. Please don't say that, I muttered. That's what people say before they tell you something awful. Sometimes, Grandma said gently, loving someone means telling them something they don't want to hear. I don't like this, I said, looking around the table. I feel like I'm on trial. You're not, Noah said. We're not accusing you. We just need you to listen. There was a seriousness in my little brother's voice I wasn't used to. He's 27 and still eats cereal out of a mixing bowl when he visits. Hearing him sound like an adult made me feel both proud and vaguely insulted. I always listen, I said defensively. My aunt snorted softly. You always listen until you don't, she said. Okay, you know what? I snapped. No, we're not doing this. Whatever this is, I don't want it. I came here for chicken and judgmental comments about my love life, not feelings. My chair scraped loudly as I pushed back from the table. Before I could stand, Grandma's hand was on mine. Not tight. Just there. Emma, she said, sit with us. Her eyes were steady. When I was a kid and had nightmares, I'd climb into bed with her when we stayed overnight. She'd hold my hand the same way until my breathing slowed. Something about that touch now rooted me to the chair. I sank back down. Fine, I said. Say what you need to say. Then can we please eat? The gravy is going to congeal. We're not going to all yell at you, my mother said. We've talked about this. Wow, I said. You had a meeting about me? That's not creepy at all. Noah rolled his eyes. Can you not deflect for 5 minutes? He asked. The fact that he'd used the word deflect made me wonder when he'd started going to therapy. We agreed we'd each tell you one thing we've noticed, Grandma said. Not to gang up, just so you know what we see when we look at you. This is awful, I muttered. It's love, Grandma countered. Messy, uncomfortable love, but still love. She nodded at Noah. You start, she said. Noah looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. He scratched at a spot on the table where the varnish had worn off over the years. You don't come to my stuff, he said finally. I blinked. What stuff? My stuff, he repeated. The things that matter to me. You always have a reason. Work, tired, busy. You didn't come to my graduation party. You didn't come to the band show I invited you to. You didn't even text after. Mum showed you pictures. You said, looks fun, and then changed the subject. Guilt pricked at me. I had a deadline that weekend, I said. I told you, my boss. I know, he said. You always have a deadline. I'm not saying your job isn't important. I'm saying I'm important too. Or I thought I was. His eyes were shining now, but he didn't look away. When we were kids, he continued, you showed up for everything. You sat in gym bleachers for hours. You came to every terrible middle school play I was in. Now I feel optional. Like I'm an appointment you reschedule when life gets busy. The words landed harder than I expected. Noah shrugged, looking down. I miss you, he added quietly. And not the version of you that sends memes at 2 a.m. The real you. The one who listens. Who makes fun of my stupid jokes. She's not around much anymore. Silence settled over the table. I stared at the salt shaker. I'm sorry, I said. The words felt inadequate. Tiny. I didn't realize, I added. I thought you didn't care if I came. You have your friends. Your things. He gave me a look that said, seriously? You're my sister, he said. Of course I care. Grandma nodded to my mother. My mum took a shaky breath. I'm scared of my phone now, she said. I frowned. What? Every time it rings and your name doesn't appear, she said, I think she's too busy for me. And every time it does appear, I think, is this the call where she finally tells me something is very wrong? I text you back, I protested. Maybe not right away, but you text everyone back, she interrupted. Work, group chats, friends. I see you posting on Instagram, laughing faces on stories at midnight. But when I call, you send me to voicemail and text, can't talk, call you later? And later doesn't come. Her voice broke. I used to know everything about your life, she said. Now I know your binge-watching habits from your posts, but not how you really are. I don't know who you talk to when you're sad. I don't know if you're eating. I don't know if you're sleeping. I don't know my daughter anymore, and it hurts. I swallowed, my own throat tight. I've been tired, I said weakly. We know, she said. We're not saying you have to be cheerful and available all the time. We're saying we want you to let us in when you're not, instead of pretending you're fine and pushing us away. Lily's turn. She spoke without being asked. You're disappearing, she said simply. My head snapped up. What? You're disappearing, she repeated. Not in a dramatic vanishing from the earth way, in a slow, everyday way. You cancel drinks last minute. You read my big emotional texts and reply 3 days later with, sorry, that sucks. You used to send me voice notes that were like 10 minutes long. Now the only time I hear your voice is on Grandma's landline. She twisted her napkin in her hands. I know you're overwhelmed, she said. I see myself in you. That scares me. Because I know what it feels like to be so tired you want to lie down on the floor in the supermarket. But I go to therapy. I talk to people. You just keep disappearing and calling it fine. I wanted to argue, to tell them they were making a big deal out of nothing, that everyone my age was like this, burned out, anxious, pretending. Instead, I felt my face get hot. I realized I'd been staring at my plate the entire time. Slowly, I looked up. They were all watching me. I feel ganged up on, I said, voice shaking. We're not here to attack you, my father said. We're here because we're scared. You keep saying that, I snapped. Scared of what? That I don't answer texts fast enough? That I'm not the perfect big sister anymore? That I'm 30 and single and too tired to pretend I love my job? Scared, Grandma said quietly. That we're going to wake up one day and it will be too late to tell you we saw you. That we knew something was wrong and we did nothing. The room went blurry. Too late for what? I whispered. My grandmother's eyes were kind and fierce at the same time. Too late to help, she said. Too late to apologize. Too late to say, we should have knocked on your door instead of telling ourselves you'd call when you were ready. My chest hurt. I'm not I'm not like Uncle Paul, I said, the name tasting strange in my mouth. We rarely said it out loud. No, Grandma agreed, but I didn't think he was like Uncle Paul either, until he was. The silence that followed was shattered only by the sound of the clock ticking on the wall. I hadn't realized how loud it was. Tick, tick, tick. Why didn't you say something earlier? I asked, voice small. We tried, my mother said. You brushed it off. I'm fine. I'm tired. Everyone's like this. If we pushed, you shut down. So we backed off. We told ourselves you were an adult, that you'd ask for help if you needed it. We were wrong, Grandma added. You're an adult, yes, but sometimes adults need their family to say, we see you. You're not fooling us. You don't have to carry this alone. Tears pricked at my eyes. Anger flared too. What if I don't want your help? I asked. Then we'll be sad, Grandma said simply. But we'll survive. We've done it before. What we couldn't survive, Emma, is losing you, and knowing we sat here eating potatoes while you drowned. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not all the way, just enough to let the water in. Chapter 4. What I was actually afraid of. I'm not drowning, I said. It came out more like a question than a statement. Okay, Noah said carefully. So how would you describe it? I opened my mouth, closed it. Busy? I said. I'm busy. Work is. Don't, Lily said gently. Don't hide behind work. Not right now. I stared at her. You make it sound like I'm lying, I said. Grandma reached for the breadbasket. Could be both, she said. You could be telling the truth about being busy and lying to yourself about how you're really doing. I'm doing what everyone does, I said, frustration bubbling up. I go to work. I pay rent. I get too little sleep. I order too much takeout. That's not a crisis. That's adulthood. A lot of people are struggling, my mother said. You're right. That doesn't make your struggle less real or less worth talking about. I don't want to talk about it, I muttered. Grandma tore off a piece of bread. I don't want to talk about cataracts, she said, but if I pretend I can see just fine, I'm going to run into the furniture. Despite myself, I snorted. This isn't like that, I said. Isn't it? She asked. I looked at my hands. Fine, I thought. You want honesty? Here's honesty. I wake up exhausted, I said slowly. Even when I sleep 10 hours. Some days I lie in bed and stare at the wall for 20 minutes before I can convince myself to stand up. The thought of showering feels impossible. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. It's not all the time, I added quickly. Just more than I'd like. Okay, that was a start. I go to work, I continued. I answer emails, sit in meetings, make pretty slides about things I don't care about. I come home. I mean to cook. I don't. I scroll my phone until my eyes burn. I fall asleep with the TV on. I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about that time in 5th grade when I forgot my lines in the school play. That's relatable, Noah muttered. I cancel plans, I said, ignoring him, because I don't have the energy to put on public Emma. Then I feel guilty for cancelling, so I avoid the people I cancelled on. Then I feel guilty about that too. It snowballs. Tears spilled over. Sometimes, I whispered, it feels like I'm watching my life from the outside, like I'm in the back row of a theatre, watching someone who looks like me go through the motions, go to work, go to Sunday lunch, nod and say, I'm fine. And I'm sitting there thinking, she's lying, but I can't make her stop. No one spoke. A car drove by outside. The clock ticked. Why didn't you tell us? My mother asked, voice barely above a whisper. I laughed, bitter and sharp. Because you all have problems of your own, I said. Grandma has her eyes and her arthritis. Dad has work stress. You have your blood pressure and your endless to-do lists. Noah's trying to figure out what to do with his life. Lily's heart keeps getting broken by men who don't deserve her. Who am I to add, by the way, I'm falling apart too? You're our Emma, Grandma said. That's who. I shook my head. And then there's the script, I said. What script? Noah asked. You know, I said. The one where I'm the responsible one. The one who has it together. The one teachers ask to keep an eye on the other kids. The one you all brag about to relatives. Emma got promoted. Emma moved to the city. Emma is doing so well. My aunt opened her mouth, closed it. I didn't want to disappoint you, I said. I didn't want you to see me the way I see me right now, as someone who can't keep up with her own laundry, let alone her own life. You've never disappointed me, Grandma said. That's not true, I replied. You just never told me when I did. We sat with that for a moment. I was ashamed, I admitted. Ashamed that I couldn't handle what everyone else seems to handle. Work, bills, relationships. I thought if I said, I'm not okay, you'd think less of me. Or, Lily said gently, we'd think more of you, because it takes guts to admit you're not okay. Way more than it takes to post a meme about being tired. I wiped my cheeks with the back of my hand. I didn't want to be Uncle Paul, I said. The air shifted. Noah glanced at Grandma. She looked at me steadily. Your uncle didn't tell us he was struggling, she said. He made jokes. He skipped dinners. He said he was tired. 3 words that suddenly sounded like an alarm. He thought he was protecting us, she continued, or protecting his pride. I don't know. I do know that when the police called, I thought, we should have pushed harder. We should have asked more questions. I promised myself I wouldn't miss the signs again. Then you started cancelling Sunday lunch. I'm not, I started. I know, she said, holding up a hand. I know you're not him. I also know that pretending you're fine is not working for you, or for us. I took a shaky breath. What if I don't know what I need? I asked. Then we start there, Grandma said, with, I don't know. It's more honest than, I'm fine. My father cleared his throat. I know I'm not good at feelings, he said. The understatement of the century. I don't always know what to say. I didn't know what to say when my brother was alive. I still don't know what to say now. But I can drive you to appointments. I can look at your budget with you. I can fix the drawer in your kitchen that's been broken for a year. Practical things. I'm good at those. It was such a dad offer I almost laughed. I don't want to be a burden, I said. You're not, my mother said firmly. You're our child. I'm 30, I pointed out. You're our 30-year-old child, she corrected. That doesn't expire. I don't know what's wrong with me, I said. The admission felt like stepping off a cliff. That's okay, Lily said. You don't have to have a diagnosis for us to take you seriously. What if this is just who I am now? I asked. What if I'm just a tired, flaky, anxious mess forever? Then we'll adjust, Grandma said. We'll move slower. We'll talk quieter. We'll bring food over instead of asking you to cook. But we can't adjust to something you won't even show us. I looked at each of them in turn. Noah, trying to look brave and failing. Lily, wiping her nose with her sleeve. My mother, eyes swollen, hand gripping her mug. My father, uncomfortable but present. My aunt and uncle, worried in their own clumsy ways. Grandma, steady as the table she sat at. They weren't my enemies. They weren't a jury. They were my people. And they were asking me, in the only way they knew how, to let them in. Chapter 5. After the roast chicken. We didn't eat right away. The food had gone lukewarm by the time Grandma insisted on making everyone a plate. Talking is hard work, she said. You can't do it on an empty stomach. It was surreal, eating mashed potatoes after crying in front of my family. Conversations drifted back to more familiar topics for a while. Noah complained about his boss. My aunt complained about the price of petrol. Grandma complained that no one was eating enough. It almost felt normal. Except it wasn't. A layer had been peeled back, and everything felt raw and too bright. After the plates had been cleared, and the lemon tart had been pronounced better than it looks, Grandma made tea. I stood in the kitchen with her, watching her pour boiling water into mugs with the same chipped blue pattern she'd had my entire life. "I'm sorry," I said abruptly. "For what?" she asked. "For scaring you," I said. "For making you feel like you had to organize an ambush." "It wasn't an ambush," she said. "It was a gathering with intention." I huffed a laugh. "Is this what parenting is?" I asked. "Constantly worrying you're not doing enough or doing too much?" "Yes," she said simply. "And that never goes away. I still worry about your mother." "She's not okay either, is she?" I asked softly. Grandma handed me a mug. "None of us are completely okay," she said. "The trick is being not okay together instead of alone." Steam curled between us. "I don't know how to like my life," I confessed. "I feel like I'm always watching other people live theirs better." "That's because you're only seeing the highlights," she said. "You see their new jobs, new babies, new holidays. You don't see them crying in the bathroom because their child won't stop screaming, or lying awake worrying they'll be fired." "I know that logically," I said. "It doesn't stop my brain from telling me I'm behind." "Behind what?" she asked. "Whose schedule are you on?" I thought about the invisible timeline in my head. Graduate by 22, engaged by 27, house by 30, kids by 32. I was 30, single, renting, and barely keeping my plants alive. "My own," I admitted. "One I made up." "Then you can change it," she said. "You're allowed to rewrite your own script, you know." I stared into my tea. "What if I can't do it alone?" I asked. "Then don't," she said. "Let us help. Not by fixing everything. We can't. If I could wave a spoon and cure depression, do you think I'd still be here cooking chickens?" I smiled. "What does help look like?" I asked. "For starters," she said, "seeing your doctor. Not Dr. Google. An actual doctor. Tell them what you told us. Let them say whether this is burnout, or depression, or anxiety, or all three dressed up in a trench coat." The thought of an appointment made my stomach twist. "And if it is?" I asked. "If they say, 'Congratulations, you're officially messed up'?" "Then we keep going," she said. "Maybe they suggest therapy, maybe medication, maybe small changes that feel silly, like going for a 10-minute walk every day or showering before noon. You don't have to fix everything at once. You just have to do the next right thing." "That sounds like a poster," I said. "It is," she admitted. Your therapist aunt gave it to me. Of course she had. I don't want to be, I started, then trailed off. Weak, Grandma offered. Yes, I whispered. Needing help doesn't make you weak, she said. Refusing it because of pride does. I swallowed. If I start taking care of myself, I said, I'm going to have to stop doing some things. Say no more. At work, with friends, with you. What if that disappoints people? It will, she said. Sometimes. But people who love you will survive their disappointment. You know what hurts more than someone saying no to a Sunday lunch? Standing at their funeral wishing they'd said no earlier. I flinched. Too blunt? She asked. A bit, I said. I'm 80, she replied. I don't have time for soft metaphors. Later, when I put my coat on, my mother hugged me longer than usual. I'm proud of you, she said into my shoulder. For what? I asked. For staying, she said. You could have walked out. You didn't. I'd wanted to. Several times. I'll make a doctor's appointment, I said. The words felt like a promise. This week, I'll tell them everything, even the parts I skip over when people ask how I am. Good, she said. Do you want me to come with you? The thought of my mother in the waiting room, leafing through outdated magazines, was both comforting and mortifying. I'll go alone, I said. But can I call you after? You can call me whenever, she said, even when it's not about doctors. Grandma kissed my cheek. Next Sunday, she said, you don't have to bring anything, just yourself. And maybe an appetite. I'll handle the rest. Okay, I said. But I'm still bringing dessert. Interventions can't ruin everything. She smiled. That's my girl, she said. Chapter 6. Not fixed, but different. It would be tidy to say that after Sunday lunch at Grandma's turned into a family intervention, my life transformed. That I saw a doctor, got a magical diagnosis, took a pill, went to therapy, and became a glowing example of mental health and work-life balance. Life doesn't work like that. What did happen was slower, messier, more real. I saw my doctor. I sat on the crinkly paper and told her, in halting sentences, what I'd told my family. The tiredness, the cancelled plans, the nights staring at the ceiling. She listened. When I finished, she said, That sounds really hard, Emma. You've been carrying a lot. I burst into tears at the simple act of someone saying, That sounds hard, instead of, You'll be fine. We talked about depression, about anxiety, about burnout. She gave it a name. Moderate depressive episode with anxiety features. It sounded like a weather report. She suggested therapy. She suggested, gently, medication as an option. She suggested small, manageable habits. Think of it as rehab for your life, she said. Not a boot camp. We don't punish you into feeling better. We build slowly. I left with a referral, a prescription I wasn't sure I'd fill, and a sense that maybe I wasn't uniquely broken, just human. My family didn't ask for a blow-by-blow update. They asked, how did it go? And accepted, it was okay, as an answer. Noah sent me memes again. Lily texted, proud of you, at random times. My mother called a little less often, but when she did, she listened more. Grandma kept making too much food. She also sent me home with leftovers labelled with reheating instructions in large block letters. At work, I did something that scared me more than any client presentation. I told my boss I needed to adjust my workload. I've been struggling, I said. I'm getting help, but I need to be realistic about what I can do without burning out. To my surprise, she didn't fire me. She adjusted deadlines, pushed back on unnecessary meetings, offered flexibility. Everyone's hanging by a thread these days, she said. I'd rather you tell me before yours snaps. Some friendships fell away, not because people were cruel, because we'd been holding on to something that didn't fit anymore. New ones formed, slowly, in therapy waiting rooms, in a support group my aunt recommended, in small, quiet moments with people who said, "Me too," when I thought I was the only one. I still cancelled plans sometimes, but less often. And when I did, I tried to tell the truth. I'm not up for it tonight. My brain is loud. Can we reschedule? Most of the time, people understood. On Sundays, I kept going to Grandma's. Not every single time. Not with the old no excuses rule hanging over my head. Sometimes I texted, I'm wiped. Can we skip this week? And no one made me feel like I'd broken some sacred covenant. More often I went. Sometimes I was quiet. Sometimes I was loud. Sometimes I laughed so hard at Noah's terrible jokes that tea came out of my nose. The family intervention became part of our law. The night we all ganged up on Emma, Noah would joke, and Grandma would swat his arm. Not ganged up, she'd say. Gathered up. Same number of people, he'd reply. Different vibe. A year later, at another Sunday lunch, my cousin Lily walked in looking like she hadn't slept in a week. She smiled too wide. Her hands shook a little when she poured herself water. I caught Grandma's eye. She raised an eyebrow. We didn't stage another intervention. Not that day. But after dessert, I found Lily in the kitchen, staring at the fridge like it held answers. Hey, I said. You okay? She opened her mouth, closed it. Fine, she said eventually. I smiled. Do you want to try that again? I asked. She looked at me. Something in her face softened. No, she said honestly. I'm not fine. I'm really not fine. We sat on the floor together, backs against the cabinets, and she told me everything. I listened. I didn't try to fix her. I didn't tell her, everyone feels like that. I said, that sounds really hard. And I'm glad you told me. At some point, Grandma shuffled in, muttering about how no one can ever find the sugar when they need it, even though in this case, the sugar was clearly emotional and metaphorical. She looked at us on the floor. Do we need another Sunday? She asked. Lily laughed, watery. Maybe, she said. But not today. Today I just need to cry in the kitchen. Good, Grandma said. The kitchen is where all the crying should happen. Easier to clean up. She handed us a roll of paper towels and left. Later, as I drove home with a container of leftovers on the passenger seat, I thought about that first intervention Sunday. How trapped I'd felt. How angry I'd been. How exposed. I thought about what would have happened if they hadn't done it. If they'd kept letting me say, I'm fine, and nodded along, telling themselves I was strong, independent, capable. Maybe I would have been okay. Maybe I wouldn't have. I don't know. What I do know is this. That Sunday lunch at Grandma's didn't magically fix my life. But it cracked something open. It took fine off the table as my default answer and replaced it with something messier, more honest, and, ultimately, more helpful. Now, when my phone buzzes with the family group chat, Sunday lunch this week? Roast beef. I'll bring dessert. I'll bring my charming personality. Noah, we said no lies in this chat. I feel something I didn't feel much back then. Not dread, not obligation, relief. That there is a table where I can show up tired or sad or laughing, or all three. And no one will say, you're fine. They'll say, You're here. Sometimes that's enough.